For about 20 years, though it's somewhat dated, squared off bottom. I have a lot of those, and you can find them at auctions and antique sales, and every now and then somebody will just bring in something that they think I would wear.
And from what I hear, does your daughter make you ties, or occasionally?
She's 4, my oldest daughter, and yes, she did make me a tie last year for some Father's Day tie competition. And I wore it to school to her absolute delight earlier this year, I think.
Yes, I think I remember that tie. Very well done.
Thank you.
She could do that more in the future.
Glad to know you were conscious that day in class, Allison.
Of course I was. Also, talking with you earlier, you mentioned you have a story to tell us about Elvis Presley, being that is what the show is dedicated to.
Yes. One of my friends is a teacher at Warren Central, and he was about my age, I guess a year younger, and came into class somewhat distraught when Elvis had died the day after. And he was kind of mumbling about it, that he couldn't believe the king was dead, as he'd grown up listening to Blue Suede Shoes and all those oldies but goodies. And one of his students remarked, absolutely seriously, "Well, golly, the guy was 40 years old," as though all of us who are 40 or thereabouts are on their last legs. This guy immediately clutched at his heart because he was pushing 40 already. So seemed young to me, but this guy thought, hey, 40, why, you're on the downhill side of life anyhow, as am I now.
Well, they did say he died a normal death.
Yes, although I think by most of our standards he'd had an abnormal life before that.
That's true. He had some abnormalities in his body when he died.
Yes.
Okay, also Mr. Sutton has some little hobbies that are a little unusual. He collects American flags.
Yes, I do. I got into it a couple of years ago when I went to an antique show and saw a guy who had an oddball collection of flags, and I said to him, I go to a lot of auctions, go to a lot of antiques, and I've never seen any flags with less than 48 stars, which was about U.S. history teachers will be correct me, about 1912, I think. And this guy said it's because you never paid any attention, that before 1912 there were lots of oddball patterns and stars, and most people just look at them and don't pay any attention to them. So I started collecting them, and delighted to have said that, be able to say that I've gotten a few of them here and there. Not usually for very much. They're just flags that have stars in a circle, or they have stars in the shape of a large star. Oddball patterns from, I think the earliest one I have was 31 stars, 1851, I believe it is, when California became a state.
Do you have these hung around your house, or?
Not yet. They're all in a pile, actually, in my house, and eventually I'll get them hung. I try to kind of focus on those that are 2 feet or smaller, because they're easier to hang and display. But the one from California is about 7 feet by 4 feet, so it's going to cost me infinitely more to frame it than it did to purchase it. But
okay, I can understand that. Another hobby Mr. Sutton has, let's see, he's very unusual, and that's probably why he teaches psychology. I'm not sure about that, but he collects fractional currency and other coins. Is that correct?
yes, I guess when I was a kid, 30 years ago, I started collecting coins. That was before you had all the silver coins taken out of circulation, as people now hoard them just for the metal. But I started collecting coins and kept up with that a little bit in later years, and stumbled on a guy who had a collection of fractional currency, which was used during the Civil War as people were hoarding currency. The United States government, in order to make change, put out pieces of paper with stamps on them for varying amounts of fractional currency. And then they started producing the paper without the stamps, or as much stamp-like appearance. It's called fractional currency, and it's now out of date, but it's kind of interesting, a little bit of history.
Sounds like it. Well, Mr. Sutton, while we have you on here, why don't you tell us a little about your psychology class and the curriculum, since this is what you do? besides all these hobbies?
Psychology class, an elective course here at the high school. Anybody can take it. It's not a requirement to graduate or anything like that. And I try to teach the course primarily around those things that I think kids will find beneficial or useful in life later on when they get out of school. Things like how to make your kids smarter if you have kids later on. Things like why people see things differently, their perception of the world around them, unit on mental illness, that sort of thing. Basically things that I think they'll be exposed to later on in life as well. It's a neat class, and I recommend everybody take it because it will make their high school experience neat.
I've had a lot of fun with it, I know. It's a fun class. Well, Mr. Sutton, I thank you for sharing with us your hobbies and your ties.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Allison. Appreciate it.
Okay. Coming up right next, after a 30-second break, will be Jennifer Parker with the Home for Friendless Animals.
Yes, it was largely. The psychology was a curve. Wasn't expecting that. I didn't think that.
Hello and welcome to Headed for the Future. This week we're getting ready to go to the prom. So I'd like to introduce from Michael's, Chris, who will be doing Jill's hair today. Take it away.
Okay, what we're going to do today is show you a few different things to do with your hair and maybe your makeup for prom. One of the things to keep in mind is what type of a dress that you're going to be wearing. If you're going to be wearing an off-the-shoulder dress, you're probably going to want to wear your hair down so that it doesn't, accent, make your neck look longer. And there's a few things that we can do with the makeup that'll help accent certain facial features, and a few things that we're going to do with the hair. So what we're going to do with Jill's hair is we're going to bring it all up, and we're going to bring it over to the right side here. Basically, fairly easy to do. One of the things to keep in mind when you're doing your makeup for prom is the color of dress that you're going to wear and what style it is. You'll have some long hair here. There's some different things we can do with updos also, using combs. You can take combs like banana combs and bring the hair all up, curl it all up. Some people like to do an updo, like if you're going to wear a real fashionable type of dress that's a collar type of dress, maybe like something with some baby's breath or flowers, different jewelry. There's all sorts of different things that you can do. This is a maximum holding styling spray. You have 3 different kinds of hairspray that you can use. There's regular hairspray, there's a maximum hold, and then there's a gel. What I'd like to do now is maybe bring Allison out and go ahead and start with her makeup. Okay, we're back with Allison. We've already put her makeup on and got a little bit of base on there. One of the things to keep in mind this year for the spring fashions coming out, with your makeup, basically it's going to be mostly just lips and eyes this year. You want to stay away from anything that's going to be real shiny, like lip glossy type of a lipstick. You want a I'm going to do the eye makeup now. What we're doing here is just putting a little eyeliner on. And very little blush this year too. Just a little bit just to accent the jawline. And then we're gonna use some of this liquid. Like I said before, you want to keep in mind the colors that you're using to match with your outfit or your dress. Mascara. Do we have any mascara? Huh?
White too.
Okay. Another thing to keep in mind this year, I've noticed most of the fashions that are coming out for women, most of the hair is coming forward on the new styles. They're directing everything forward towards the face, which is quite a bit different than last year. Basically, that's about it.
Okay. What is that fashion show in July?
Okay.
We'll be right back after a short break with fashion and the touches and makeup.
The 1832 Illinois militia is choosing a captain.
I'll be captain. I'll wrestle you for it.
When the National Guard and Reserve was called the militia, Lincoln took time off his job to join.
Jeff Lee. Abe Lincoln, the new captain.
If he worked for you today, would you give him time off to serve his country? Support Guardsmen and Reservists you employ. Protect their future while they protect yours.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I'll dry them all.
Last year, 4 million people graduated from Red Cross classes. One of them could save your life. Join them.
Like a bridge over troubled water, I'll ease your mind.
Hi, and welcome back to Headed for the Future. Now we have our models with our prom dresses and tuxes, and as you see, David is wearing a black full dress tail by After Six Dynasty collection. Next we have Allison in a pink satin dot strapless by Mike Benet. It has a large taffeta bow in the back, and the cost is $240. We would like to thank the Bridal Boutique of Carmel for supplying the dresses and the tuxes for us. Next, we have Matt Wright, and he is wearing Gray Tails by Bill Blass. Now we have Jill in a black beaded bustier dress by Gunny Sacks, the full ballerina length with a twill skirt. The cost is $130. Don't they look nice?
I have welcomed people from all nations, your parents, grandparents, and I gave them a dream of freedom and hope. Now time and the elements are destroying me. I am in desperate need of help. America, you are my dream, and I am yours. If you still believe in me, save me.
Keep the torch lit. Send your contribution or call 1-800-THE-LADY.
These guys have been raising cattle a long time, but when it comes to marketing, they can sure use a little Texas know-how. As a Peace Corps volunteer, I'm showing them how to use what little capital they do have to raise a herd that'll generate some real income. It may be just a start, but let me tell you, a good bottom line translates in any language. I took my experience and put it to work in the Peace Corps.
The United States Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love.
Hi, I'm Laura Allen here on Headed for the Future. For this week's movie review, I went to see Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. This third sequel of horror was filled with the usual scariness and gore associated with the ever-lovable Freddy Krueger. Returning from the previous nightmares is Nancy, who once again ends up fighting Freddy. This particular movie is about the remaining Elm Street children whose parents killed Freddy. They are in a psychiatric ward of a hospital plagued by horrible nightmares, and the doctors are insisting that they are suicidal and that no evil in a dream can actually murder anyone. Personally speaking, I enjoyed Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 much more than the first two. The special effects were more detailed and disgusting and gave a better overall effect. I won't say how it ends, but the writers and directors left it so that Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 can be created. We'll be right back after this break.
You may do it again.
Bad days. Everybody has them.
Hello? No, not even with both of us looking. The baby is crying. I gotta go.
Even the littlest thing can set you off. Stop. Take time out. Count to 10. Get hold of yourself before you take hold of your child. Write Prevent Child Abuse, Box 2866, Chicago.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Record Review. I'm your host, John Galnick, and this week we're taking a look at U2's latest album, Joshua Tree. A little bit about the band from Dublin, Ireland. It consists of vocalists Paul Bono Hewson, guitarist Dave the Edge Evans, bassist Adam Clayton, and the former of the band and drummer Larry Mullen Jr. Why don't we just take a listen to the first song off this album. This one's called Where the Streets Have No Name. Take a listen. U2 got their big break in 1979 when they won a music contest and received an Ireland-only record deal with CBS Records. And Bono wasn't quite satisfied with that, so he sent all of the recordings to major record companies, and they got a deal in 1980 with the record company Island Records, and they released their first album in 1980, and it's called Boy. But why don't we just jump right back into this album and take a listen to the second song off the first side. This one's called I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For Yet. The third song on this album is their first hit from the album. It's up to number 35 on Billboard's Hot 100 after only 2 weeks on the charts. This is their latest hit, With or Without You. U2, Joshua Tree. Let me take a listen to that. Bono was younger, he was in a gang in Dublin, Ireland, and he got his name Bonovox because of his gift for the gab, and it was given to him by a man named Gigi, another band member, gang member, I guess you could say. And Gigi's younger brother was the kid, I guess you could say, that was on the album, the U2's first hit album in America, War. When we take a listen to the third song off the first side, this one's called Bullets in the Blue Sky, U2. The band was formed in 1978, and while the band was formed, all of them were attending the Mount Temple Comprehensive School in Dublin, Ireland. And Larry Mullen, the drummer for the band, is the only member in the band that had any musical background before that. And he was kicked out of the marching band because he had too long of hair. Depressing but true. Take a listen to, what's the fourth song and fifth song on the first side. This one's called Running to Stand Still, one of the slower songs of the album. When we take a listen to that.
Gotta cry without weeping, talk without speaking, scream without raising your voice. You know I took the poison from the poison stream.
Currently U2 has 6 albums out, this being their 6th, and they have a few EPs that's under 11-song albums. And they include Live Under a Blood Red Sky, the live album, and also Wide Awake in America, the 4-album cut that's live also. Why don't we listen to the first song off of the second side. This one's called The Red Hill Mining Town.
In the caverns of the night, we're wounded by fear, injured in doubt.
A lot of U2 songs, they speak about God, and Adam Clayton, the bassist, is the only one in the band that isn't an avid Christian. They said they had a lot of problems with that in the beginning, but they've worked things out. And here's another song by U2 talking about God. This is In God's Country. Take a listen. This next song on the album is their second hit, and it's sure to be a good one. This one is called Trip Through Your Wires, second single from U2's album. Let's take a listen to that right now. The next song on the album is talking about the name of the album, which is Joshua Tree.